Welcome to the Latin America 5 Teams class notes. Make sure to give these notes a proper title, give them a date, give them a page number that will correspond with the page number you listed as in your table of contents. First theme we'll talk about is location. Location always answers the question of where a place is. Mostly between 30 degrees north and 55 degrees south, and 120 degrees west and 35 degrees west. So the entirety of the region is in the Western Hemisphere, and it's going to be located mostly, as we said, between these two lines. But also, we talked about some other lines of latitude that are important. We see that most of the region is also going to be located in the tropics. So it's going to have an impact on daily life in regards to temperatures, length of day, growing seasons, things like that. As far as relative location, where is it? It's south of the United States, about 2,000 miles, south of New York City to Mexico City. It's about 5,000 miles from New York City to Santiago, Chile, just to measure a distance from a couple of major cities. Theme 2, what's it like? Characteristics. About 2.5 times as big as the continental U.S., the whole region, from Mexico down to Chile and Argentina. There are 4 tectonic plates that meet in the middle, right around Middle America, which gives the whole region a very active volcano and earthquake zone. This is Tungurahua in Ecuador. It's been pretty much actively erupting since 1999. And also remember the earthquake in 2010, 7.0 magnitude earthquake hit Haiti, absolutely devastated the entire region. The upside is all that eroded ash and lava creates very fertile soil. So you couple fertile soil made from eroded ash and lava with the amount of rain and sun that a tropical region gets, and what you have is an area that supports a vast amount of agriculture. Look at some physical features. These are some mountains in Middle America. Another set of mountains is the Andes Mountains. The Andes are about 5,500 miles long, and they average around 20,000 feet high. So fairly high mountain range, higher than the Alps, but not as high as the Himalayas. Another physical feature is the Amazon basin. We talked about basins in class. We saw it was like a bowl-like shape. It's about 2.7 million square miles of lowland, some of it even below sea level. And it's massive. It's, as you can see on the image over here to the left, it's almost as big as the continent of the United States. The longest river and biggest river in the region is the Amazon. It's a long 4,000 miles, starts in Peru and then flows through Brazil. 20% of the Earth's potable water can be found here just in the Amazon River. Most of this region, when you look at these two climate maps, get your idea of between Middle America, Caribbean, and South America. Most of it is in the tropics, so it's going to receive most of the sun's direct rays year-round and lots of precipitation. Because of that precipitation and sun, we get a lot of vegetation, specifically rainforest. 55% of Brazil is covered in rainforest. And this is going to be home to a lot of different native animal species. So looking here, we see 50% of the world's known species live in the Amazon rainforest. Very high level of biodiversity throughout the region. In Middle America, stretching down through South America, all of these are native species. And of course, you can't forget one of the signature species of South America is the anaconda, the world's largest snake. Moving on to human-environment interaction. So one of the things we'll talk about in greater detail is what's called land use conflict. And land use conflict basically means the differences among different groups of people over how to best use a region's resources. So in this case, it's how should we use the Amazon's resources, most of the trees? What's the best way to do it? Because we see a lot of conflict between native Amazonians, rubber tappers, cattle ranchers, farmers, small farmers, loggers, and scientists and other research groups. All of these groups have a different goal. Some of them want to preserve the rainforest as it is. Some of them want to use it for economic gain. One of the things, mining is also a big one that's not seen here. But one of the things we're always worried about is deforestation, the idea of chopping down massive amounts of trees and not replacing them. Venezuela and Mexico also use resources, interact with the environment through natural oil, fossil fuels, and oil and natural gas reserves. One of the unique ways that South America uses natural resources is through what's called gasohol. Gasohol is gasoline mixed with alcohol produced from sugarcane, and it's mostly in Brazil. It's considered the most successful alternative fuel to date. Sugarcane ethanol is 7 times more efficient than corn ethanol. That's what we make here in the United States. Corn ethanol also costs about 30% more because it takes longer to turn corn into fuel than it does to take sugarcane to fuel. Brazil's got kind of a head start as well. In the United States, we haven't been doing this long. Brazil's ethanol program is almost 40 years old. And potentially, the switch from gasoline to gasohol could reduce greenhouse gas emissions as much as 61%. Brazil is the world's second largest producer of ethanol fuel, and it's the world's largest exporter of fuel. So more people buy Brazil's gasohol than they do the U.S.'s. In 2010, Brazil produced almost 7 billion gallons. Brazil is considered the world's biofuel industry leader. So you talk about how technology is going to change the future. Brazil is on the sort of cutting edge of that in regards to replacing fuel. The problem, of course, is why don't we do this? Well, Brazil's biofuel model might only work in Brazil and some other tropical countries. Brazil's got advanced agricultural technology. It's got a vast amount of arable land available, and sugarcane farming requires tropical or subtropical climate. So the model that Brazil has done is not easily replicated because not many tropical countries have the size of Brazil. Not many tropical countries have the economy that's developed enough to commit this kind of industrial agriculture. Most of the countries with the size and technology are outside this climate zone. Another huge part of how people interact with the environment is through tourism. Many Latin American countries have what would be considered by most people a pleasant climate and some beautiful topography, and that attracts tourism. And those tourists, while they're there, are vital to the economy. Movement. Check the last one, almost there. So one of the most important events in world history is called the Columbian Exchange. So in 1492, Christopher Columbus sails from Spain and ends up landing in the Americas, somewhere in the Caribbean islands. This begins the shift of goods and people and disease from Europe and Africa and Asia to the Americas, and then also in the other direction. You had foodstuffs and different type of products shifting from what used to be just found in North America now to the Old World. So completely changes this interaction between Old World and New World. Completely changes the entire planet. Europeans began arriving here and settling in the Americas, and they had 3 major goals: to trade, to come up with goods they could trade, to establish colonies for people to live in, and to convert native people to Christianity. Generally, the major exchange going on is you see African slaves coming to the New World, New World food is traveling to Europe and Africa. And we also see African European diseases traveling to the New World. And all of those three big things there are going to have huge consequences. Of course, you're going to have a decimating of the native African population in West Africa. You're going to have a growth of African culture in the New World. You're going to see population explosions in Europe from the foods that are being brought over. And you also see a decimation of the Native American population in North and South America from those diseases. Another more modern, let's fast forward now to modern times, modern movement is because of economic problems, social problems, security problems in various Latin American countries, we see a huge migration of people from poorer Latin American countries migrating to wealthier Latin American countries and, of course, the United States. We are the strongest economy in this region, so we're the shortest trip. And they come here to work as cheap labor. In 2002, 16% of immigrants in the United States were from Mexico. In 2010, that number jumped to 24% of immigrants in the United States were Mexico. So Latin American immigrants are becoming our largest percentage of workers in this country. This has a tremendous effect back in Latin America through what's called remittance, or money that's sent by migrants back to their families to help pay for health care, schooling, and other community programs back home. Panama Canal is another example of movement, human movement. In 1903, the United States was becoming a world power, and they wanted to be able to easily move their naval forces from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean quickly, without having to worry about going around Cape Horn, the southern part of South America. As a result, they approached Colombia and said, hey, we want to cut a path, a canal through the skinny part of your country. The Colombians refused, so the United States went to that part of the country and said, hey, we'll support your Declaration of Independence if you let us build a canal through. So this country, this part of Colombia, which later becomes known as Panama, declares independence. The Colombian government tries to stop them from breaking away, and lo and behold, the U.S. Navy shows up miraculously just in the nick of time, and we're able to repel the Colombian efforts to try to reclaim Panama, and we, as a result, Panama becomes independent, and we get to dig a giant hole in their country, of which we get to control for the next about 100 years. Panama, the United States actually owned and ran the Panama Canal, and it was very important, and remains important today, to shorten travel time between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. One other idea of movement that we're going to talk about is the stopping of movement and the movement of ideas. During the Cold War, stopping the movement or expansion of communism into other countries was the number one political issue for the United States and the governments of Latin America. We call this the domino theory. There was a widely held belief in the West that if you allowed any one country to follow communism, then the countries neighboring would fall. So just like a set of dominoes, it's what they call the domino theory. And this created a real concern when communist movements began to spring up just south of our own territory. So this becomes a huge issue. No matter what, number one political issue for the United States, we need to stop the spread of communism at all costs. It's kind of a harder thing for us to understand today. So the United States, as a result, supports a series of very brutal right-wing military dictatorships who often seize power away from democratic elected governments. So we support a lot of bad guys who did nothing for their country. We had a lot of revolutionary leaders either jailed or killed so that communist ideology wouldn't spread anywhere in Latin America. It took hold in Cuba, it took hold in a few other countries, and we were going to make sure that didn't happen to us. It's going to have a huge influence on our foreign policy in Latin America. It's also going to have a huge influence on how modern-day Latin American governments view us. Last one, region. We're going to take a look at what this region has in common. So why do we group these countries together? They all speak languages that reflect the colonial past. They all have a blend of Native American, African, and European influences. Daily life tends to focus on family and religion. They have a relatively same location. Climates are relatively diverse because every single region has coastal lowlands and mountainous highlands, and it's a region very rich in natural resources. So that wraps up my short 5 themes class notes. If you have any questions, you can always go back and view this in different parts.